What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. So I am on the beach right now, and I realized that because I'm on vacation, I don't really have a good setup all the time to film. So I need to do part 2 of getting into the ICU. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. In the last video, part 1, I talked about me leaving the institution I was employed at full time because the ICU nurse manager had declined to interview me for a position on the unit, even though I had worked at the hospital for a total of 5 years. I had worked as a technician all the way through nursing school and had a pretty good reputation. I didn't have any issues at all. So I went ahead and I resigned from the institution. I got into home care for a little bit. I did home care nursing, and I was also still teaching as a clinical instructor on the weekend. So one of my biggest fears as a nurse is to lose my skills. And some people will tell you, oh, there's no such thing, but I disagree. I think that when you're not at the bedside doing hands-on patient care, you tend to forget, right? Because you're not doing it anymore. It's no longer in practice. So when I started doing home care, I still had a desire to work in the ICU. So I was also afraid of losing some of my hands-on skills. I went ahead and I eventually applied for another ICU position within another organization. So I went ahead, submitted my application, and I was contacted by a recruiter. They told me that they were having like a mass interview thingy, like I forget what it's called. But anyway, all of the managers from all of the different departments would be interviewing multiple applicants to see if they would be a good fit for their unit, because the hospital was hiring for nurses. So I said, okay, fine. They set up the interview and I actually went in. The interview consisted of all of the different unit managers, and it was like in a conference room, a round table interview, and I sat down and various managers would ask me questions, I guess based on my resume and based on my experience, so on and so forth. So one of the questions they asked me was, well, what unit, if you had to choose, what unit would you be interested in working? I said, when I filled out the initial application, I filled it out to work in the ICU, and the ICU manager was there. They were like, oh, okay. They were very impressed with my resume. A lot of the nurse managers who happened to be way older than I was, they said, oh my goodness, you have done so many things in your career that I haven't. Like, your resume is very impressive. So I said, okay, whatever. Anyway, the interview went well. I left and I was like, okay, well, hopefully the ICU manager calls me back, because I thought everything went well. Let me tell y'all what happened. He calls me back. And the recruiter stated that they were very impressed with my interview, and the ICU manager wants to offer me a position on the step-down ICU. Excuse me? The step-down ICU. Like, did I hear correctly? Step-down ICU? Did I apply for step-down ICU? I did not. I did not apply for the step-down ICU. So when the recruiter said that to me, I was like, the step-down ICU? I was very taken aback. And she was like, yeah, she doesn't have any room right now in the ICU, and just figured you can start in the step-down ICU and then work your way up. I said, absolutely not. Immediately, no thank you, I'll pass. And she was like, what, like, you know, why, what's wrong? I said, because I know that trick all too well. I was like, I've seen this play out so many times, where a nurse applies to work in the ICU and you will redirect them into like a lesser unit, a step-down unit, a med-surg unit, a tele unit, and tell them to apply if after 6 months and apply in a year, only for them to be told, oh, you still don't have enough experience. I said, no, I'm not getting caught up in that. I said, I applied for an ICU position and I'm not accepting anything less. First of all, let me just say that the previous hospital that I had worked at, I was on their IMC unit, which is a step-down ICU. That hospital had a way higher acuity than this current hospital, who wants to start me in a step-down ICU. I'm like, I already have all of the training that I needed from the first hospital, because that hospital was lit. Like, I'm talking about lit, okay? Patients were sick as I don't know what. So the fact that I'm applying to y'all ICU, you guys should be willing to take me, because I come from such a strong background from where I previously was. Why would you want to take me and put me on y'all step-down ICU, which would pretty much be like me working on a tele unit? That didn't make sense. So of course I declined. I told the recruiter, you know, thank you for contacting me back and thank you for your offer, but I am going to go ahead and decline. I'm not accepting a position at this point in my career, 5 years in. I'm not accepting anything less than what I applied for. All right, cool. So she was like, okay, she really apologized. She apologized, whatever. All right, lady, move on with my life. A week later, the recruiter calls me back because the manager of the ER was so impressed with my interview, and she found out that the ICU did not have a position for me, and she also found out that I declined the step-down ICU position. So she wanted the recruiter to reach back out to me to see if I would consider working in the ER. Now, your girl at that time did not know what ER nursing consisted of. So I said, okay. I did a little bit of research. I looked and I saw how much ER nurses got paid on travel assignments. And I was like, okay, you know, they make a little bit of coin. Let me go ahead and I can probably work there, get a year and a half under my belt, and then I can, you know, start traveling and make this ER nurse travel money. So I accepted. I told the recruiter, fine, I would start in the emergency room. And we set everything up. Child, y'all girl went to the emergency room. I literally did a shift and a half, and I was like, nah, I'm not gonna be able to do it. This is not for me. Like, ER nursing is a whole nother animal. When I tell y'all, y'all girl was lost, honey, lost in all of that ER sauce. I had no clue what was going on in the ER. I was so confused, and my preceptor, she wasn't good at all, and she was not really interested in helping me understand the flow of the ER. First of all, I realized very quickly that my brain does not work the same way an ER nurse brain works, right? Like, I like to see my patients all shift long, whether they progress or whether they decline. That's what I like to see. The ER, it's none of that going on, honey. It's pass and go, out of fire here, out of fire there. Get this patient from the front, this patient from the back going up, transported, the stretcher, the moving around, the movement, the different pods. Oh, let's walk over and check waters. What? Oh, you don't need to do a full assessment. Like, just do focus because the patient came in with this. We're not doing all that other stuff. Like, when I tell y'all, I was so confused. I was like, nah, I'm not gonna be able to do this. I'm not. So I did the first shift. Went back again the next day, did the second shift. Halfway through the second shift, I said no. I went to the manager. I said, thank you for the opportunity, but I'm not gonna be able to do this. It is just, my brain is not catching up or keeping up with what is happening in this emergency room. Mind you, said emergency room is the busiest emergency room in the state of Maryland, okay? The busiest. And I told the manager, I said, I'm not gonna be able to do it because I can't keep up. Like, my brain is not understanding, it's not comprehending the tasks and what you all are doing down here. So thank you for the opportunity, but I'm gonna have to resign. She was shocked because she's never had someone come to her and be so honest and so truthful about the fact that the ER is not working for them. She's like, a lot of people will just leave and go and return. She really appreciated me coming to her and having a conversation with her. She said to me, you know what, you're a really good nurse, you're excellent. And she was like, I was impressed with you from day one when you interviewed. I really want for you to stay in the organization. Let me make a few phone calls and see what I can do for you. A couple days later, she calls me back and she was like, you initially wanted to be in the ICU, right? I said, yes. She was like, okay, there's a position upstairs in the ICU. She was like, one of the nurses just had put in her 2 weeks notice, so they're gonna have open availability and you can have that slot. I was like, wow. That was quick. Things worked out really well. So initially, the manager for the ICU, I don't know if she knew she had a staff member that was leaving. I don't know. I'm still questioning that story, whether or not someone really left or whether or not they had the space all the time and they just didn't want to fill it with me. But anyway, the manager from the ER did whatever she had to do and she was like, yep, you'll start in the ICU. So that's how I got my first job as an ICU nurse. It was because of the nurse manager being very graceful and looking out for me and saying, you deserve a chance and I'm gonna do something to get you in. And that's exactly what she did. The manager of the emergency room, I think she eventually resigned from the organization and I don't know where she is right now, but I am forever indebted to her and I'm forever grateful to her for pulling whatever strings she pulled to get me into the ICU. Because that was my first ICU experience and I actually cherish that experience. I mean, there were some obstacles, so some getting used to the demographics, getting used to like the culture of the unit, but I would say that in that ICU I learned a whole lot. because the physicians were great, the residents were great, the physicians' assistants were amazing. The nurses were pretty supportive as well. I really learned why the ICU was such a coveted spot in many hospitals. And like I said, that is where I learned to really strengthen my assessment skills and really learn to trust myself as a nurse. It was that ICU experience. And in that specific ICU, I spent a total of 6 years working full-time as a nurse. It was that ICU that started it all for me. But that is all for now. I do have another video to follow up because there's more. Because I'm going to tell you in the next video how I encountered the first nurse manager who declined to interview me. This story is going to be very interesting for you all. It's amazing how the world goes full circle, right? And it's also very amazing to realize that you never know who you're going to encounter in life. You just never know. So it's always important to treat people kindly. But anyway, on that note, I'm going to head out. I'm pretty sure you guys are hearing all of the noise, the beach waves, the kids in the ocean. It's amazing here. So I will see you all in the next video. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. See you all again.